Can we ever reach a unanimous decision? And you can tell me how I'm wrong here. An idea starts with an individual and it spreads depending on its stickiness. The term meme, coined by Richard Dawkins and popularized by the internet variety, describes the concept of copying ideas and success and failure of those based on a few factors. So, how useful is the idea? How often is it replicated? And how often does it change? These factors are similar to genetic mutations and how they survive. The scientific method is a meme within the academic community that, once developed, has become the standard for testing, evaluating, sharing, and reviewing the worthiness of new memes. We'll call the scientific method the best meme evaluation tool. For an oversimplification, the best results from hypotheses end up being retested and cited in other papers and research to continue the work and advance our collective knowledge. Today, a simple concept for children would be unfathomable for the most intelligent adults 500 years ago. The same will be true for us. So let's acknowledge our level of understanding, or rather the lack thereof, before we move on. We have a general consensus on many issues, split decisions on far too many, and unanimous decisions on much too less.
Welcome to Put to the Question, where we will try to answer questions that break our preconceived notions about the world, without it being too painful of a process. We'll try to relate what are seemingly unrelated topics, and we ought to want to have our ideas challenged, so we can have a better understanding after hashing out our differences. Even if we don't yet agree, hopefully we remain cordial and respectful until we reconcile. In the end, the goal is for us all to be at peace. And now back to it.
Diversity of opinion is a beautiful thing. It allows new and better memes to develop, but like the scientific method, there should be some fundamentals that we all agree upon. That said, my goal is a unanimous decision on the ideas put forth here. Let's start with having 100% honesty. Higher minds like ours should remove dishonesty, lying, manipulation, negative reinforcement, and the like as methods of reaching our goal. It's a hard pill to swallow, I'm sure, but eventually we can all be on the same page. The American founding fathers, flawed as they may be, discussed the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are simple, basic necessities for everyone, and I shouldn't have an argument there. But if you think about it, we have many things that still go against them. For the right of life, we have abortion, barbarism, and capital punishment. Yes, I threw in some trigger words there, but if we go 500 years in the future, I don't think society will have to explicitly ban anything. It will just be obvious what things are acceptable and which ones aren't. It should be easy. Killing is wrong. But today we like to hem and haw about protecting your castle or a police officer's qualified immunity or whatever other justification we want to use. Killing is killing, and we should view all of it as wrong. We'll extrapolate the idea to warfare, and I'll bet people want to justify war. If the aggressor wants to be right, they shouldn't accept loss of life over whatever that thing is without making themselves wrong. In any circumstances, violence is wrong. Let's use our words. If one side is clearly right, we should be able to reason our way to an agreement and avoid loss of life. As the Isaac Asimov character Hardin in The Foundation says, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. The future people, if we don't destroy ourselves first, will be laughing at us for nuclear proliferation and the amount of time and energy wasted on mutually assured destruction. It's like us laughing at the four humors in bloodletting. It wasn't funny for the people living through it, though. Liberty, freedom, and the ability to exercise one's will. The argument here is simple. If your will doesn't hinder or impede another's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, should we not be free to do whatever it is that we want to do? With this idea, I don't see any valid argument that can be made against it. The pursuit of happiness is a tough one, and that's why it's a pursuit. This will be another thing that the future people look back upon and laugh. And they laugh, but to keep from crying. Many of our pursuits hinder another's, and it seems we just don't give a damn. Again, at the very least, our pursuit should not alienate another from life or liberty, but perhaps we can agree to also not hinder another's pursuit of happiness while we are in pursuit of our own. That's the start. That's the meme I would like everyone to agree upon. Can we get a unanimous decision on that? So, religion is a tough meme to break. And let's ask ourselves a few questions. Does your religion follow the above ideas about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And we'll factor in those actions not taking place in a vacuum. Is it compatible with the collective knowledge that has arisen from the scientific method? So here's my pursuit of happiness. I certainly haven't figured everything out, but I think I lived metaphorically more lives than many, so my words might provide some insight. My pursuit has some basic running themes. So 1, music is life. 2, never shy away from expanding your knowledge. And lifelong learning is a great pursuit. And another one is fellowship with like-minded individuals is preferable. And 4, moderation should be kept in mind. And with that, I think of Key and Peele's LMFAO sketch with the endless metaphorical party. Sure, great. But an endless literal party? Probably not. I'm going to talk about the simple need for food and progress the idea to make it better with the action of a little depth. At the most basic level, I need food for nourishment. If I'm smart, I find the most nutrient-rich foods. If I'm even smarter, I'll find foods that taste the best. And if I'm smarter than that, I'll find the best chef to prepare that food for me. And to continue, I'll share that food with companions. And if you want to progress it a little bit further, we can make an evening out of listening to music, preparing food from wonderful recipes from the best chefs, and then enjoy that together. Moderation comes in because nothing is worse than having that good time ruined by overindulgence. I believe that scenario hits the points of my pursuit. I think it's something we can all agree upon for that unanimous decision. It can be tailored all the way up to scientific discovery, in which you have that eureka moment, made better by sharing it with a friend. You have at it, mix and match for yourself at will for your own pursuit. Throw in a dance party, some board games, karaoke. I don't know, get creative. I think we're making the pursuit more difficult than it has to be. Sans that religious section and a couple trigger words, I don't think I said anything too controversial. But if you are on board so far, maybe by the end, we can all agree to agree. So I'll discuss our collective pursuits and how we overcome the current hindrances. In the end, we can all laugh about how we live today, similarly to how we find bloodletting humorous. In the pursuit of knowledge, we can laugh at our previous ignorance. Humor, of Latin origin for liquid, the 4 humors, liquids of the body, that must remain in balance, hence the letting of blood during illness, obviously from the imbalance. Through discovery, we have found that they were mistaken. Humor today is seen as one's affinity for comedy, a good sense of humor. And when something particularly funny, one might lose control of their bladder and pee, releasing their humor. Language. That's the great thing about language. It allowed for the spreading of memes, funny ones, useful ones that have progressed society to the point of magic compared to the past. But language itself is quite amazing. The right combination of concepts put together can move an individual to action if they deem that action in their best interest. It's why some of us read advice columns and see therapists. The point here is we respect information from certain sources, and we take it as wisdom depending on how we feel about the source. Trustworthiness comes into play. Generally, parents are the first source of information, and we take what they say as gospel. It's the simple reason why Republicans tend to have Republican kids, Democrats, Christians have Christians, and the same for Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, racists, vegetarians, and the list goes on. If a father likes baseball, chances are his children will as well. The problem arises when parents pass down that faulty information that young minds go on to believe wholeheartedly because it comes from someone who has kept you alive before you were able to do it on your own. It ends up being chance, whether you pray to Allah or not pray to any god at all. Rather than focus on the religious part of it, let's focus on the words and the power of persuasion, or the more negative manipulation. In order to avoid resentment, anyone wishing to cause a reaction should start with honesty. Going further than simple honesty, we should expect to have a mutual understanding that the other is being truthful, so we can act accordingly to what they are saying. If lying is involved, even if the person moves toward what they otherwise would see as a desirable outcome, you still manipulated them to get there. You stole the decision-making process from them with that deceit. If the truth does not move someone to action, they are not ready for that action. Or perhaps our method of truth-saying is underdeveloped. We just need to find the right combination of motivating words. With enough time, you begin to think of infinity. Have you given it an honest thought? Seriously let your mind take you to the end of the universe and back and see what you come up with? If you live in an area with light pollution, without having escaped it, you have yet to experience the night sky and seeing the Milky Way, and you realize how tiny we are. When you see countless stars that have countless planets in our galaxy alone, and then knowing that there are countless galaxies with as many stars and planets and making up the observable universe, and we're only just getting started. Then we consider the implications of quantum mechanics, the many worlds and many universes with particular properties that may or may not be stable, but there is no reason to believe that we are unique. The scientific method has led to the realization that light and matter can behave as a wave or a particle. The double slit experiment displays that with this setup, an electron beam fired at a double slit at a detector, which will read the location the electron may hit after passing through that double slit. A certain pattern results depending on whether or not the electrons are observed going through one or the other slit. If you do look at the slits to see which one the electron passes through, you get the pattern on the detector indicative of the characteristics of a particle. If you only look at the detector, then you see the pattern indicative of a wave. The possibilities of the results are described in the Schrödinger equation through a wave function. The thought experiment of Schrödinger's cat being both alive and dead is the metaphor Schrödinger used to describe the duality of a quantum state. The idea is you put a cat in a box with a radioactive substance. There is a detector also in the box that will trigger the release of poison if the particle decays. In order to know whether or not the cat is alive or dead, you must open the box. And that's the observation at the slit, if you will. But until you do, technically, the cat is both alive and dead, based on you not knowing if the particle decayed or not. Not knowing which slit the electron goes through, you detect all of the possibilities. The events are entangled. The different states are called superposition, and the possibilities all exist until the measurement occurs. The conclusion is that both happen, and your particular reality collapses into existence when you open the box to observe the cat as alive or dead. As we walk through life, we are performing that experiment, experiencing the upspin or the downspin, the particle or the wave. We must realize that both possibilities happen. You could come to the conclusion that everything that can happen will happen. Objectively, we could evaluate each occurrence as better or worse. To bring it all back around, when we hear certain words arranged in a way to convey information, we can decide to have a positive or a negative reaction. We could completely ignore them. We may find them to be wise and useful or worthless, and we'll forget them shortly after them entering our minds. When we think about infinity, that means if we put the right combination of words together, a person would see or hear them and agree and make a positive change in their own lives in the process. The change is positive for another's life, and the process continues on and on into infinity. Our collective energy would be performing work without friction. The potential of such a setup would be greater than anything we have yet to see. Somewhere this is happening. 'Tisn't here. There is the story of Sisyphus, who is fated to roll the boulder up the hill, only to have it fall back down again, and then start the process over of rolling it back up. I see our society take steps forward and backward, and I slap my forehead in disbelief at the lack of collective action to have a better future. In my contemplation of all these possibilities, I wonder, what will be possible if we got there? What if? I wonder if a place exists in time that is so perfect in its path that it avoided the pain and suffering that we now experience. Is the bad needed to know how to avoid it in the future? Or was it able to be preconceived with wisdom to prevent it? Is there such a place? Were they able to pull their energy towards collective good, that they didn't exploit the weak, manipulate the less intelligent, or distract themselves with trivial traits? Did they simply appreciate their existence without the need for a creator? Or they at least lost the idea upon evidence to the contrary, and respect the autonomy of their fellow man while having theirs respected, and then saw the goal of overcoming their biology, and that a simulation that could defy the laws of nature, that wouldn't hold them in its constraints, that would allow for an augmentation that could be a collective good. Did they then work to get there as quickly and sustainably as possible? Did they then start stacking themselves? Did they combine their knowledge to expand the mind? And that's where being John Malkovich comes in. If we get to the point of living in a simulation, being John Malkovich won't be science fiction. We could be invited into someone's mind and experience what they experience. There could be curated experiences. There could be a group of people, like in Being John Malkovich, who all experience the same thing and use their collective consciousnesses to advance their objectives. They would have to have a unanimous decision on their action and be working in harmony to make such an arrangement work. And when all become one will want all to do well. A pluribus unum. The question is, what do we do with it? I sadly understand the impulse to live with utter disregard to anyone else. I disagree with it, but I understand. Facing infinity, one asks the point of it all. The empty reply says it all. There is no point. I once heard that philosophy reduces to the question of why not to kill oneself. How defeatist is that? And I ask, have you tasted ice cream? Have you been in a drum circle or jammed listening to Marvin Gaye? Or War? Have you heard Miles Davis' trumpet blast through your speakers? Have you danced in a club without a care in the world? Have you been loved and loved in return? I think they're thinking too much about it, or getting caught up in the wrong things. Future people and the digital you. Like quantum mechanics, the future you that you experience is one of many possibilities. The further you move from the divergence, the less and less that future you is you. The same could be said for the digital you. The moment you are copied, you will be the same, but the divergence will happen much more quickly. As the digital you, would you decide to search through all the content available and learn everything that could be learned? How would you evaluate fact from fiction? Fake news versus historical events? The nuance of history written by the victor? I'll look to the scientific community, the scientific method, and the ideal peer review process. When that is done and you've learned all the languages and you've been able to piece together gaps in your knowledge from your prior biological self, would you change your actions today if you held all the knowledge that you can think of holding in the future? What would you tell your prior self? How would you feel about your fellow man and their actions towards others? If you had more knowledge today, would you behave differently? How about a unanimous decision on how we proceed?
If you like my ideas, perhaps you'll enjoy my novella, Take a Little Trip. Have you questioned the nature of your reality? Have you wondered why things aren't better? Do you believe humanity can achieve a time of tenacious peace with an empathetic understanding of each other, that we can truly experience a libertarian dream? And that's a small L there. By thinking about life a little differently, I hope to inspire readers to affirm all of those questions. I use the trope of aliens observing Earth, but from a somewhat unique angle. Not wanting the planet nor its resources for themselves, they are non-biological consciousnesses, and by cataloging the human experience, they can augment their own. They are observing the collective situation we are in, and particularly how we got to where we are. They could solve all of our problems, but the question is, would humanity even want them to? Our biggest hang-ups are their main topics of discussion: religion, tribalism, racism, conflict, environmental destruction, and the general short-sightedness of our global actions. The story is written as a play, with the mood shifting from comedy to tragedy and back again as they move towards the goal of addressing humanity and avoiding conflict in the process. The main point is answering the big question, why? Why should we universally improve? And the quick answer, which is addressed early on in the book, is to selfishly live a better life. If you decide to read it, hopefully you will find it enjoyable. Patreons are invited to ask questions, which I will answer through video Q&As exclusively there. Links to the book and the Patreon are in the description, and even if you don't choose to support in other ways, thanks for watching.